Andy, would you like to proceed?
Can if you want. I can if you want me to.
You're sitting at the head.
Oh, shoot. How'd that happen?
You sat there.
As I sat here.
As I sat here.
Yeah. You make sure you. Oh, and turn it off?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I did it last time.
We'll call the meeting to order. It's 4:01. We'll start with roll call. Kyle Rainwright.
Present.
Mark Cowan.
Present.
Sandy Sanborn.
Here.
Rita Davis.
Here.
Jerry McDermott.
Here.
Isaac Lee.
Here.
Andy Elder. Wonderful. Looks like we've established a quorum. We will move on to approval of minutes from April 15th of 2024. Handed out a packet, should be in your packet. Take a look at them. And I believe, Jerry, you socialized these via email.
I did.
Maybe?
I did.
Okay.
I've read through them and I'd make a recommendation to approve them as submitted.
All right. So we have a motion and a second and 2 seconds to approve. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. All right, motion is carried. Those are approved. All right, so we will move on to old business. Do we have any old business to discuss today? All right, we will move on to new business. Looks like we have a few things on new business.
Yes, we do need to, I think we need to come up with an election of officers. I know we were given that directive. The previous city economic leader. But I don't know, you guys tell me, you guys have been at it longer. Have you ever had, or is it even in the policies or the charter?
What I recall, and I don't know how she got there, but when I got here in 2016, Kathy was our fearless leader until
Till she left?
she left.
Yeah, okay.
The organizer, and that was primarily because of her position on council. That's not to say that, I I haven't seen anywhere in language of our bylaws or ordinances or anything where it says it had to be the case. But she was always the one presiding over the meetings. Frank was secretary for a while. Before that was George Gilbert.
Okay. And nothing formally.
Frank kind of ran the show since I've been here.
Yeah.
I've been on, I don't know, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. So it's been really those three.
What year did you start?
17 officially.
17? Okay. I want to say I started like in 15, maybe. And it was there. I've never seen an election of officers for this group.
Okay. So maybe we should just, by consensus. Go ahead, Sandy.
Who has a burning desire to lead the group?
Kyle.
That was quick. You got it. Whoa.
No.
Sorry. I don't know if you do or not.
Do you, Kyle?
I don't know.
Would you even consider it?
No, not at this time.
Okay, maybe in a year.
Sandy,
Minutes now.
you asked the question.
I haven't, but you have done such a great job of putting things together and following up detail wise. I think if you have a burning desire, you should make it known so we can take action on it.
I'm absolutely fine if I take either one of the roles. So you definitely need somebody that's going to be the secretary, right? You need someone that's taking that role on.
I was thinking a dual role if you take it.
a dual role.
Yeah.
Do it all.
Because Jerry told me that he was not going to be the secretary.
Good night.
I'm good either way. Honestly,
Well,
it really doesn't bother me.
I think you would need a backup though, too, if he is not unavailable. So there would have to be somebody else to do that. So if anything,
If you do both and you can't be here, then
Yeah,
somebody else
that's
is going to
true.
have to be able to step up so that there's a succession of, work, I guess you want to
Right.
call it, right?
Right.
That's where Kyle steps in. We're kidding. We're totally kidding.
It's really not that difficult as far as pulling the minutes together, and running the meetings are just, you pretty much show up. to run the meeting. So I don't think that's an issue at all from my perspective.
And they are recorded, so they can be
Yeah, verified.
listened to and summarized from those two. So there's that. But as far as leading the meeting, that would be someone else.
I don't know if we need a motion, but if we do, I would nominate Andy.
Oh, for the, yes.
Um,
I'll
make that-
nominate
make that
Andy.
motion.
I'll second the nomination for Andy to lead. I mean, look, he's in the seat. He's doing an awesome job.
Oh, yeah.
He's already
I've done it
taking
for like
notes.
5 minutes now, so,
And he has been here the longest.
yeah.
Yeah,
that
honestly,
is true.
he's got
That is
the
true.
most experience with AIP and all seriousness. You would be the logical choice.
My business background and finance background isn't anything like the rest of the folks here, so I would not feel adequate. I would be the second banana if you.
We're
wanted
used to that, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm a good, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with that necessarily, but we probably do need to put it into a motion, into a vote, into the minutes, since we maybe not seen that in the past. So,
What if we made you president/secretary of the board, and we made Jerry vice president/secretary of the board?
yeah.
Sounds like a
that-
motion to
that
me.
makes
You want it
sense.
professionally done?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
sounds like a motion to me.
Okay.
You want to say?
That was a motion.
Okay.
So let's see. All right. So we've got Mark. Yeah. The first one, Mark. Marie on the second one. So motion,
I'll second that motion.
Andy is president, secretary, and then Jerry as vice president. Yes.
Yes.
All right. So we have a motion on the floor for, as stated. Any further discussion?
One of the questions that I guess I have is.
Yes.
Are we gonna determine that this position has term limits, like you're president 3 years and then the vice president takes over? Because if we don't do something like that, you could end up running it for 15 years if you were.
Not good or bad.
There's
It's
nothing
just,
wrong with that if
Yeah.
you want to do it the next 15 years.
I think you bring up some good points because I have another part, but I think it goes into what does that term look like and who's eligible. The seat that I sit in is because the ordinance writes us in.
Yes.
I don't know that you want that same person or position to be eligible for that seat.
I would agree with that.
So
There's a separation, correct?
there's that separation of power, if you will. So there's things like that, Mark, that I think as you start to build out what that hierarchy looks like of this organization, it's looking at those uniquenesses of what does the ordinance say, what do our policies and procedures say,
Yes.
and then how do we operate?
So with that, do you feel the same about someone from the council?
No.
Okay.
Here's why. There's oversight on the council. And by ordinance, if you read the way that it was written, it almost ordains that person to be almighty on
Right.
this body, because there's no
Right.
other connection. Right. So, I mean, we are ultimately controlled by the city. We are ultimately controlled by the council.
Right.
So,
Every decision is backed by them. So from the standpoint of the motion that's on the table, do we want to move forward with the motion on the table and then discuss some of the additional details, like does it need to be in the ordinance, does it need to be in the policy and procedure, or do we need to talk about that before the motion is voted upon?
I think you can do the motion and then spend some time over the next few meetings working through those details.
Okay. All right. So any further discussion on the motion on the table? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. All right, motion is carried. All right, so we'll jump next to discussion on policies and procedures. And in your packet today, and I apologize for not getting them out to you sooner. I've made a mess with my own packet here. But I do have the original ordinance from 2013. So we'll kind of take this in, I think, in order, the ordinance and then into the policies and procedures. The 2013 ordinance is in your packet. 4 pages, spans from packet page 3 to packet page 6, I believe, or 7, sorry. There is a second ordinance packet page 8 through 9. That is the current ordinance from 2021. Behind that, we had worked in 2023. It was about this time in 2023 to make an update to the ordinance, which in reality probably needs to occur because the original ordinance and the second ordinance in 2021 do speak to a seat from Elevate Ventures, which is no longer a part of this. So that was one reason why it needs to be updated. And then there were additional, I think, pieces of language that needed to be updated based on some changes at the state level, maybe, Isaac?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So in the packet, I have also from packet page 10 through 14. 10 through 14, I have a red line copy of the adjustments that were made to the 2021 ordinance to be taken back to city council.
I remember right, this never got to city council. So we'll pick it up.
So moving this forward, which we would want to do, how would we like to proceed? Isaac, I mean, obviously, Mark, you were here. Maria, you were here. Sandy, you might have been here right at the beginning of this conversation. Do we feel comfortable turning this back over to Jerry to take back to city council for an update at this point?
I feel comfortable with that because these were the changes that we had discussed previously, and I don't think that anything has changed since then as far as the changes that we discussed. Unless there was an ordinance change in between that time, but I don't think that has happened.
So we then. So we made changes to the wording from investment fund to venture capital fund. We made, go ahead.
I'm sorry, did Tim going to look at this or did he look at it?
I don't know that we ever got that far, but I would suggest we can take a look at it specifically around the Indiana statute.
Yeah. I think that's where we're.
That's about where we ended.
Yes, where we ended with council giving us to council to tell us if he thought it was okay.
So is the proper procedure for Kim to take a look at it before it goes to council, or council first to go to Kim?
I think council first, and then, because there'll be 3 readings for it.
I'll say
Okay.
legal counsel. That's what I was taking.
Oh, legal
But I
counsel.
was taking
I
legal
got you.
counsel when I heard counsel. That's what I understood
No,
rather
in
than
theory-
common counsel.
In theory, without the mayor's persuasion or council's persuasion, Kim can't act on anything. So,
Probably do it during the.
yeah, he would have to be told.
All right, so from this body, we probably need a motion and approval. This is the ordinance that we're recommending back to council to move forward with.
I'll make that motion.
All right, so Jerry,
I'll second.
we have a second by Maria. Any further discussion?
Real quick, just
Yes.
a quick question. How soon do you want that presented to council? Not tonight, obviously, but.
Why not?
Not that bad.
Why not?
That's for the agenda.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, it might be best to do it, since we don't meet in June,
Mhm.
right?
This body does not
This
meet in
body
June.
does not meet in June. Then maybe get that process started in the June lull for AIF, and then
Mhm.
we'll have at least 2 readings of it, and then one more the day of our next meeting, our
Okay.
next council meeting too, and our next AIF meeting.
That makes sense.
So to clarify, council will get that and approve the go-ahead to have it, review the changes and then allow us to proceed if they vote, if they approve that. And then it will be reviewed by legal counsel. And then will it go back to council, to common council to,
At the first reading, I think I'd like to present it to Ken to have him look at it during this process.
okay,
If that'd be all right. And then by the third reading, he will certainly be able to give us a recommendation or any issues, or he'll contact us if there's any issues. Is that fair or not? Is that good?
I was just wondering, I just wanted to clarify with what we were going to be doing and what the plan was.
Before we take a vote on it, my question back to the group as well is there anything in here that needs to be in the ordinance as it relates to the officers? Or should that be in the policies?
I think that's a policy document, only because this sets up the governing body only by its membership. You would expect the policy to determine its governance.
Right.
Okay.
And to that point too, I want to make sure that we are clear. That Indiana Code section 6-3, 6-10-8. If you recall in the previous documents, that's kind of where it's spelled out by NASIC code, what projects we can go after. This part of the section of the Indiana Code broadens that to include industrial and commercial development. Okay. I think it's not, I don't think it's 10-8, I think it's 10-7 is what was referenced. Have Kim double check, but there's like 5 areas that it kept it very concise in terms of what we determine are projects eligible for this type of thing. Okay.
So are we still comfortable with the document as presented with the motion on the table? Take that to Kim for his review.
Double check okay.
We're double checking the code.
Actually, I'll tell you what it is. I have it up in front of me real quick, just for the minutes. Section K 1-8 is the definitions now. Previously, you saw research and development, technology, job training and education, and acquisition of property rights. These funds now can be used for these 8 items. Research and development and technology, job creation and education, acquisition of property interests, infrastructure improvements, new building structures, rehabilitation of those building structures, machinery and equipment, and funding of small business development with respect to prototype products, marketing, and business plans.
Okay.
It's a lot broader
Very much so.
than what we previously were.
I like that.
So,
Because we also, well, that's another topic too. After we deal with this, we have other possible changes.
Thanks your question. I'm comfortable with it.
Comfortable with the motion? You comfortable with the second? All right. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the ordinance to send back to council, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? All right, motion's carried. Thank you. Okay. Next on our agenda, the policies and procedures. In your packet, 17 through 20. As far as I'm aware, and Isaac, maybe you know differently, these are the updated policies and procedures that I had.
these are the ones that are approved, similar to the ordinance. There was a red line document in the file structure that we had given to the city of Angola. Only reason I know that is because item 3 on this, we're talking about eligibility, and it gave you all the specific basic codes. There was a suggestion at the time back in 2023 that we clean those out and mirror those either to 1 or 2 documents, City of Angola strategic plan, or in combination with the city's, the EDC's strategic plan, so that the target industries would align.
Mm-hmm.
So this is probably the approved document right now.
Mm-hmm.
but there's a red line document.
Okay.
This is what I take to.
Correct. And I can send you the clean copy. Actually,
There was one.
there is a clean copy in that.
Okay, that's what I'm looking at. Okay, thanks.
I mean, in that red line document, Andy, if I may, there was a couple of things that we went through, just like the policies and procedures. You'll see in the first paragraph, Elevate Ventures was mentioned. We took the opportunity to take that out. I believe we clarified the application process. For instance, the one part about an application fee that didn't come to our organization, it came to the city to offset Ken's time.
Right.
Wasn't a one-to-one. There was a suggestion, at least conversation, to raise that application fee from $50 to $100. Again, I already talked about the eligibility piece. Trying to recall from memory if we even put more in writing about the steps of the procedure, but I don't recall what those were.
Yeah.
Why would these codes not mirror the EDC's codes?
Why would they not?
I mean,
Historically, I don't know that there was the overall effort between the communities and our organization to make sure that the targeted industries matched. In this last strategic plan that we did in 2023, we intentionally worked with the City of Angola Council and the mayor's office to make sure that the targeted industries would match. But it still gives you, I mean, those things would be like advanced manufacturing, technology base was part of that. I mean, it still gave you a broader scope of work that would make certain projects eligible versus specifically saying it had to fit in one of these 20 NACIT codes, which is very specific. I can tell you historically, the reason they did that is it did two things. One, it was in areas where we felt strong about attracting business. And two, it was north of that $15 an hour wage at the time that this was created, which was desired. We wanted the high wage positions. In my opinion, any ordinance or any document that references $15 an hour, you can speak to that. You of course have an industry that hires people, and Mark, you do at the bank. That's not realistic anymore. So that was another reason to step back a little bit, not be so specific, but tie it to something that breathes a little bit more often, like a strategic plan, either for the community or one that's for the county. Countywide, not just the county, I should say.
So we have a red line copy somewhere.
I know I have it in my files, but I thought it was in the files that were sent over to the city.
Okay.
So
So it's possible I gave those over, is what you're saying?
possibly.
Probably. Yeah.
I can go back and look for them, but some of these same conversations is what we were having at that time.
Yeah. And how do we move this forward where we can get updated and we can align those eligibility criteria? What's that look like? What's that process look like for us?
I'd be happy, if the board's willing, I'd be happy to get the red line document and a copy of our strategic plan, send it out to the AIF board, and then give you time to, most of you are going to be aware of the strategic plan anyway, so you won't have to read that 100+ page document. But you'll be able to see some of the targeted areas. And then really it's taking a look at these policies and procedures document and kind of going through and say, well, that maybe doesn't make sense now, or this does, but we need to tweak it a little bit.
Also, I'd like to add, if we can put in the policies and procedures, some sort of review time so that
Yes.
we can always review these and, because things change. Obviously, we were just talking about change. And if we can be more flexible, I think that's good for everybody.
I think too, if there's over the last 6-8 months, if there's things that we have talked about that there are hard yeses, they have to be this way, or hard no's, they cannot be that way any longer. I'm hoping that's when these things come to fruition so that they can be put down into the policies and procedures.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, there is a contract document out there. One's probably not been signed since pre-COVID. With our organization, whether that exists or not, doesn't matter to me. I'll still offer my services per the ordinance to this body. We never did it for the contract. But with that being said, there's some things in here I want to make sure that it's clear. Are we taking the applications, doing the credit check, and then providing that information to the body like we do now? Or are parts of that, or all of it, need to be changed?
Mhm.
If so, that's fine. But that's the stuff that I'm really interested in. Understanding what the role is.
Yeah.
What we should be doing.
Didn't we put in our policy and procedures too that we, even if we don't change them, that we have a meeting and at least review them yearly?
Every July, every
I mean, even if we just
January.
review them and say everything looks great, let's go again another year. That's not, it doesn't hurt them to review them on a yearly basis.
Agreed.
Recommend that.
Yeah.
100%.
That makes sense. So Isaac, you're willing to find the red line copy,
Yes.
send it out to the group, also send the EDC,
Yes.
strat plan out. And then as an agenda item, I would assume in July, we would talk in more detail in this group about the updates.
Does the red line copy cover the loan terms as well?
I believe it covered the entirety of that document.
Okay.
It went through the whole thing.
That was a lot of the questions that you had, Kyle, in the last meeting.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, yeah, I think that's right, but let's wait till I.
I saw that in a minute.
So Isaac,
Yeah.
to bring up another component of this, because as I review this, it feels very much focused on the original loan fund
It does.
and not on the micro grant process.
That, you're absolutely correct. And it's neither here nor there whether we needed to have a policy at the time we did it or not. We took an opportunity to take some of the funding, much like what we did in COVID, to create a micro grant program to try to encourage entrepreneurs to make that next step, which is very hard to do sometimes when you run out of cash, friends and family money primarily. So you won't see any of that in there, is what I'm telling you.
Right.
But we do have some of that information. We did set up some terms. You'll see in some of the prior minutes that Kathy and Frank took to where,
Mhm.
it was 2 rounds of funding, but the total funding over a year spread could not be more than 25,000. That was a life cap of an applicant. They could never get more than 25,000, whether there was another idea or not. It followed a very similar procedural process as the AIF loan. But there was some credence given in terms of, okay, so where's this person at? It's obviously the business hasn't started yet, so their personal P&Ls and their credit statements might not be as squeaky as it would if it was going through Kyle right now with Refresh Tech or another example, right?
Mhm.
So we try to follow those same procedures, but yeah, you're right. The pilot program, there might be a draft document somewhere in that folder that I gave to you.
It might, do we
But I
feel
don't
like
know
it'd
that
be a good idea to get it into a policy and procedure?
Either
these?
into it or an addendum to it.
Yeah.
It should have its own terms and spelled out.
Mhm.
To my knowledge, there's still some funding left in that original $100,000. We did not loan it all out or grant it all out. But I would recommend to have some terms.
Okay.
So would we be talking about allocation, like a certain percentage of the total, or an actual set amount for the micro?
That's to be determined. Initially, it was seeded with $100,000, and the conversation then, and reflected in the minutes, was that's it. We wanted to at some point find some backfill of funding. How would that work? In theory, in good theory, I guess it would be as if, Sandy had a great idea and he got $25,000 from the fund and he made a bunch of money. Remember, the AIF gave him the first $25,000. He'd come back and be philanthropic. That's the general idea. But in economic development, these projects, we don't always hit home runs. Sometimes we don't even hit singles. So in theory, it was good, but I think in talking with Kathy and others, we still needed to try to find a way to, if we wanted to keep that pilot program, how would there be money put into it?
Has that gone by the wayside? The micro grant? issues, or is that still a possibility?
It's still a possibility. I still offer the grant funding, but I will tell you what's really scared some of our entrepreneurs is the high interest rates and inflation. It's put a stall a lot on, I don't know, because right now it's a no term. It's forgivable when you operate it, but if they don't follow through with it, they're on the hook. So
Am I right? Kyle asked this last week too. Isn't our interest rate structure prime -2,
yes, but never below 2%.
never below 2?
So in the periods where we were at 4% or below that, I'm like, it doesn't matter. We're at 2%.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So today we're 6.5, which is,
it's a good rate.
Yeah.
It's a competitive rate and we're capped. So we can only do $100,000 note. So it's a gap filler. It's never going to be funding the full project. There's language in here that talks about that we are not sole money in. We take second position to the banks and all that good stuff.
the other thing that was brought up in our last meeting, and Kyle might have brought this up too, is are we doing proper advertising and do the people in the community know? And
So our AIF has a place on our website. It's always had a place on our website with information. At minimum, 3 to 4 times a year, it's mentioned within our newsletter that goes out to all industries because that's primarily where the AIF existed. And every BRNE visit, which we were at 2 today, Retha went to one of them, we talk about the AIF investment loan. But again, that product was only, if you look at the old terms, specific to very specific NASIC codes. So I couldn't take it to a property development company because it didn't fit within the NASIC codes. I couldn't take it to some of these other industries that were even borderline R&D because it wasn't specific within the NASIC code that they identified themselves in. So I had to be cautious of that.
I think we talked about the city's website.
Right.
It
It's on
mentioned
there
on
too.
that.
It's on the city's website.
And the Chamber of Commerce as well.
Chambers mentioned it. We've asked Julie to do it a couple times and she's got it on our website. Yeah.
I think, was it Maria came up with as a possibility, get the chamber involved. Somebody did chamber involvement more with getting the word out to their folks. And I thought about just coming up with an AIF card,
There
a
you go.
business card, just
There you go.
start spread them around with all our names on them.
When I came on board, I have a small box, but it's still got some brochures of an AIF info card.
Oh.
I will tell you a lot of that information is now outdated.
Yeah.
Luckily, didn't have too much contact information on it, but I would say it's outdated. So we did have some brochures done.
I guess I
Everything's-
contact City Hall, not us directly.
Everything right now, I will tell you, is going into, you're going to want some printed material, even if it's digital that, for instance, if I'm out meeting with a business, I can print out and go take, that's fine. But printed material anymore it's going to get stuck on the shelf. You want more on demand. So having somebody help create some of that creative digital, maybe Facebook posts and things like that, that would be better. But again, the part that I struggled with is operating under the current ordinances and the P&Ts, the LISIC, NASIC codes.
Yeah.
I can only go to so many people. And during a low interest rate time, it's like, Mark's offering me 3% money and you're offering me 2 and I'm capped at 100. He's offering me $500,000.
Yeah.
We need to talk.
That was 3 years ago.
That's on the record.
I'm just giving examples. These are some of the things that when you really think about the environment that we were going through, money was really cheap. And then you had a slowing of the economy, you had things that shut down. Whether you like how it turned out politically or not, you had people freeze with what they were doing.
again, while we're working on this policy and procedure, should our NASIC codes be exactly the same? Should we change them to exactly what the EDC is?
That's up for discussion. It's a point of discussion is what I was saying. So being that we did the strategic plan in 2023, we didn't base anything on NASIC. We based it on industry terminology. For instance, advanced manufacturing. That's going to encompass NASIC code 31 and 33, first 2 digits. But everything within that, you'll notice that in the policy and procedures, you mentioned 6 digits. So you're hacking out quite a big section of 33 because maybe it's not the right next 4 digits that you want. So what we try to do is get away from that and tie it to something that's reviewed more often. So if the city of Angola makes a complete pivot into something else, we're now going into renewable energies. This was flexible to that. But I can understand why they put it specific to NASA codes at the time.
It's gonna be good once we go through the red line of the terms, just so we can understand better where it's gotten to. I brought it up last time, but the projected at least 20 new highly skilled jobs, averaging annual wage of 40,000 each. You're asking for 100K, but then your business also has to be doing under $1 million, but you need to project that you're going to create 800,000 in revenue.
I'm glad you brought that up. So that was another piece. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 20 jobs. I mean, you would see every community.
Yeah.
You're not getting incentives without adding new jobs.
Yeah.
With automation and what that's done, it's not reduced your capacity or even your pay wages. As a matter of fact, it's increased it because you built in capacity, your output's better. It's counterproductive to say it's got to be 20 jobs or you don't profit.
Yeah.
Keep in mind when PPP came out, it was you just keep the people you have.
I forgot about
Give them the
that.
money.
Right.
Just don't let anybody go.
So, I mean, you can probably in that document tie it to, hey, look, if, today we're going to spot check, you have 20 jobs. In 6 months from now, after we give this money, you only have 15. We might have a problem.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something we look at. Or a year from now, given some grace. Because you hope the investments increasing the output and essentially adding new jobs. That
It
can
could be
still
a
be the
percentage too. It could be a percentage of how many you have employed today versus what it's going to look like in a year from now.
Mhm. To your point, these need to be reviewed routinely so that we don't get into a situation where we're so far off base that that it's not worth the loan.
Yeah.
And then it needs to be flexible enough and broad enough to give us that leniency. So I think we've probably made some decisions in the past that don't fit completely in the policy and procedure. As long as we have something in the policy and procedure that gives us that leniency, then to hand it back over to you all, the council, and say yes or no on that seems to make sense.
I think that's a clear example of how we've been as a body able to adjust with time. The documents.
It stayed static.
Right.
You had mentioned something about the ordinance and the loans and what they cover, R&D jobs. Would it be a good idea to keep an alignment with those types of wordings? that
So
are
the
very
Indiana
general
code
relevant?
is saying that if you have a venture capital fund, which we have, these are per statute are the things that you can spend it on. That's different to say that we're setting up specific industry clusters that we want to invest in. So if it's R&D, or let's use R&D as an example, research and development, that's an area that we can invest in. Kyle comes along and says, hey, I've got a new ERP system I want to bring to the table, but I need to do some research and it's going to cost me about $50,000 of rearrangement within my facility to make it work. That would fall under that classification. So Indiana code stuff is different than what I would say, what would be our prior NASIC codes.
Right.
They're different. They're just saying, here's what you can spend the dollars on versus here's what industries you can spend it.
And that's what I'm asking.
That's where you flip from
Do we-
ordinance to P&Ps.
Do we want to use more broad language or is it necessary to use those NASIC codes?
I would use broad language in the sense that you're referencing, in the case of my strategic plan, you're referencing a document like that gets more eyeballs on it more often.
Mhm.
And that's
Well, the other thing about using broader language is, we're all here to get people money. We're not here to get, what do we have outstanding? One loan?
Well, that's the thing too.
Let's get some loans out to these people and help them.
Yeah.
So that you bring up a good point too. So it's like, yes, at points where you want to get the money out to loan it, obviously you're building a loan. But Ryan, our city clerk, is not, he's a smart guy. If it's sitting in our bank, it's probably earning us a 5.5% rate on it right now. right?
Right.
So, I mean, and it's not like the balance is going anywhere. And I think that's, if we don't have an eligible project per our current operating rules, I think our hands are tied.
Yeah, I think
If we change the ordinance and change the PNPs, and then we become more case by case and we're able to go out and attract these other projects, fine, let's do that. But operating solely under the current PNP, I'm like, there's only 20.
You could also argue though, in a year that they're gonna be making 3% and not 5%.
True.
And then they want to make 6.5%.
True.
No, I think we just need to see the red line, discuss it next time, and go from there. I think we can broaden the terms as well. I believe, just like the NASIC codes. I mean, obviously there's certain terms that we have to abide by, but $1 million today isn't what $1 million was in 2016 either. So it changes.
It doesn't have to be the strat plan for the EDC. If there's another document that the city council wants to use or another process, perfectly fine. At the time, I knew we were going to do a strategic plan in early 2023. And being that we were looking at targeted industries, it made sense. Well, maybe that's the document that we use.
Yeah.
We have plans to make sure that our organization reviews that and probably does one every, at minimum, 5 years. So
Is there, this is a dumb question, but why are we targeting certain industries? Are there certain industries we don't want to help? I mean, because it's,
the targeting of industries from what I
we
was
want to help everybody in the city.
Part of what I was told back when Kathy brought me into this group after the transition from Dave to me, the targeted industries stemmed from a conversation of these were the types of industries we felt at that time would diversify our makeup. I don't know how they landed on all those NASIC codes, and quite honestly, the process to do that probably was pretty strenuous and boring. I mean, it's not fun to go through that list of seems like trillions of NASIC codes and the terminology that they use. It's not fun. So they probably grabbed it from somewhere. I don't know who they is, but somebody probably grabbed it from somewhere and said, this, kind of makes sense of the industries that we want to go after. So it's very much a spot in time.
I think you're right, though. Like, what's our goal in the end here? We want to help enable business here in Steuben County, create jobs.
I just think that we can set policies and procedures where
Yeah.
2 years from today, we've helped one business.
Right.
I mean, what have we really done? We're wasting a lot of time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I
And
agree.
I
We're
think
having a
using
lot of
broad,
meetings to help one
yeah.
person.
using broader language is going to make that a lot easier. I think, and the codes will change
Mhm.
as well. So that puts us in a box as well when the codes do change.
Mhm.
So, and
That was a large part of the conversation last year. It was like, I want to do this more. I want to offer this more. And I will say that I'm excited and happy to say that since 2016, every note we've given, it's never been a late payment and most have paid off early.
Mhm.
I think that says a lot about the due diligence going into the loans that we do provide. But Mark, you're right. I mean, either it's sitting here or it's in somebody's hands to be used. Doesn't really matter the percentage. The motive is to get growth. And you can't do that just by on the mindset.
you never know what the economy is going to support in the future. You just never know.
Case
I mean, yeah.
Case in point, look at the $200,000 that this body gave to the city to capitalize on $500,000 during COVID.
It's true.
I mean, I can't speak to city council at the time.
Yeah.
You probably could have found $200,000 elsewhere, but it didn't take much for this body to agree to do it.
If we run this program the right way, I think it'll be a lot like the program when COVID was out. You can't put a price on how much goodwill the city got when we're giving money to businesses to keep them in business.
Yeah.
You can't put a price on that.
There's something to say too. I mean, if a business knows that, yes, they're paying interest, but the interest goes back into the pool to build the principle of a program that they then can come back to later.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And I mean, with the city, the way it's set up with their budget, should it be successful, say there's 600,000 roughly left and you've got 6 notes that are out there and we're out of money. I think if it's doing well, I would expect that we would, as a body, would want to ask Jerry to get us on time on the agenda, say, hey, can we have some more money to be able to lend out? Because we've got enough applicants to do that.
Right, yeah.
So there's that possibility too.
Okay. Any further discussion on policies and procedures?
I
Quick
did
question.
want to just add one thing that maybe we can build something in, we were talking about marketing, that the recipient of a loan can help market while they have the loan. I think that would be an easy way to market, frankly. If that business who receives the loan has something that says, okay, now your turn to say, yeah, we're taking advantage of this. Here's coming.
It kind of goes back to what we were just talking about, though. The best way for them to market would be, yeah, do this. This is an easy and painless procedure, not you have to do this and you have to have 20 more employees and you have to pay them this.
And that would be as simply as share it with, could be 10 other industries or something like that, that you've done this, the information.
We talked about it, but we never got it for the last two, Mike Paul with Evolution and then Matt and can't think of the other. Yeah, there's a line. I can't think of the other name. Yeah. Gotta come to me. We were gonna ask them for testimonials and that fell through the cracks. Mike actually gave a testimonial on city council time when he came here for CF1. And he said without the AIF funding at the time that he got it, and then he came and refinanced it a second time when he was down, I think around 50 or 60,000. He needed another 40K or something, so we refinanced it and did it again.
Created the building for me to go in.
He did.
And I think
right. He did.
That's pretty cool.
those kind of things that are simpler ways to market. And, if we wanted to get into video and all that kind of stuff, that's totally different. But, you could tie those kinds of marketing ideas with a loan.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It'll be way easier once take the handcuffs off, I think, too. It'll market itself.
Mhm.
See it happen.
I think at the time it was created, handcuffs were perfect. There was a lot of new territories that this body and its members at its time were trying to explore. And you had great individuals like George with fiscal background that kind of structured a lot of what we see today. I just don't think it's at the time. So it's kind of stuck. As much as I'd love to be able to run up and down Wooler, Football, and Cliff Parkway, and even North Lane, to be honest with you. Say, hey, AF's open. Can't right now.
I think we talked about in the last meeting, didn't make it, but that we all agreed that if someone comes to us, that we'll get them in touch with you. That's what we should probably do.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
it's up to the body, but yeah.
The application and procedure right now says it can come to the city of Angola. So that would be through normal means, and then probably it would fall on Ryan's desk, or prior to that, Jennifer Barclay, probably Retha, maybe now, I don't know. Or my office. Either way, it would still go through the same process.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
And again, if that process needs to change, fine, let's talk about it.
Would that happen before it's presented to this body?
Yes, here's why. And this is why sometimes you'll see me reserve a no vote at those. If you go back and look at the roster, I don't vote for a reason. I get a chance to take a look at the innards of a company, and I place a lot of emphasis on bringing pre-qualified applicants to your doorstep with a high rate of approval. Meaning I've already done all the due diligence. My recommendation stands behind it, much like a process of what happened at the bank for Mark. He's taking his notes to the body saying, I've done all this. You hired me to do a job. This is my recommendation. Outside of something you might not know, probably the only time you'd get an answer of no, right? So that is the amount of work that goes into it, which is then why I kind of reserve myself back. I want you guys to vote on your own accord so that my vote doesn't taint that.
So we would consider you ex officio pretty much.
Well, technically, I mean, the ordinance gives me a voting right, much like Elevate Ventures should have a voting right. But that's just the practice that I've had. Now, on other things like minutes and other, you run into quorum and stuff like that to where sometimes you might need that extra vote. But on notes specifically that I'm doing all the capturing of information, just for conflict of interest, I just step back.
And I don't know if that's gonna be a policy procedural thing. Should, Isaac's, we have someone else who is in economic development come into this committee. I mean, I don't know if we want to put that into the procedures and policies to make sure that that person has that distance from them.
I think from a legality standpoint, you could also argue that me bringing in a recommendation is a vote of yes. Right? No question. But like I said, that's why I kind of let the group and body present itself. Matt from Foods Life was probably the latest example, is the latest example. He did the presentation. Body talked as a group, obviously knew what my opinion was because I brought them to you. And they voted. So however that works out, that will probably still be my practice. But I agree with you. For future individuals, maybe not me, you grant the ordinance, the city council ordinance granted my organization to appoint the person. My organization then appoints me to meet that appointment, much like city or mayor does with his appointments. Right. So it could be somebody from my board. Mark's on my board, right? So Mark could say if he wasn't on this body, I'd really like to do that. That could be me. So it doesn't have to be this position.
All right, so we can just send the policy procedure out, red line copy. We'll take a look at it as a group. I think we got some ideas, and if you want to tweak things as you see it, because I see you as the expert kind of in some of this area. I mean, I do. I mean, I think you're probably more of an expert. I shouldn't speak for everybody, but
I feel like we still need to have more discussion around what the policies say a little bit.
sure.
I think we need a lot, and I think you need to be a big part of that because we need to, you're the one out talking to these people. So we need to arm you with what you need to some yeses.
A large part of the red line document came with conversations that Kathy and I had. All right, so that's where a lot of the motives were coming from. But it also was a result of conversations that I had with individuals like Kyle operating their businesses and telling us, hey, this would be a great tool if I could do this or if I was this type of industry. So we made some of those changes. I think it is appropriate to see the red line document in its present day of what we did in 2023 as that timestamp. We should take a look at if there's, before we present anything to anybody else, even this body, before we accept those, we should read through them again and make sure, are these the changes that we want or should we tweak it a little bit? The policies and procedures stays with this body, does not have to go to the city council. So this one's easier to change, different than the ordinance.
Yeah, but I agree with you. We need to have additional conversation after we see what those red lines look like, or anything else that we might. And I would say
I'm interested in Kyle, and Mark's in the private sector too. So was Sandy, I guess. I am all of you were, but Jerry.
Sorry, Jerry.
But no, I guess different perspective. Like from Kyle and Maria, I think, because I don't know that you've seen these yet. This red lines. Okay, so I'm interested in their feedback.
Yeah.
One is somebody who would likely probably use it. By the way, involved in this stuff doesn't preclude you from this. But I mean, that was, again, it was two people saying we need to change this because the way it's working right now, it's really restrictive.
Mhm.
That's I want to make sure the context of how the red line document was created is understood.
Right.
Moving ahead, I would agree. All of you provide your own uniqueness to it, your own expertise. Let's read it and be comfortable with something that we can all get behind.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you. Good discussion. Appreciate that. Actually, one more item too, Isaac.
Yes.
There's a checklist, a procedural checklist that was also created at one point in time that probably needs to live with that policy or needs to be updated
Yes.
when the policy is done as well. So I just want to make sure I say that.
Now that checklist, You're talking about this document.
Yeah, it's, packet 21 through 22, maybe.
Yeah, for the most part, that checklist is still pretty much intact. It does say a lot of AIF board and the actions, and then in the actions, you'll see a lot of the SCEDC or disappointment. So yes, I would say that anything that happens with the PNP, should there be an associate change with the procedural checklist. I'll give you a clear example. Should the application fee be changed from 50 to 100, that first checklist bullet item would then be slightly changed. So they'll be correlated back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay, I assume we maybe have converged the discussion on policies and procedures with where do we go from here? Question
I
mark?
think so, yeah.
Okay, all right.
That was just me talking there.
It's very technical and official.
Yeah.
Any additional new business for this group today?
One thing I did not do, and Jerry, I'm gonna apologize to you officially. I sat on meeting with Seth because part of me is sitting here working under the old policies and procedures and strongly believe, and this is nothing against Seth and his business, the application and its placement or submission to us never should have gotten to that point. The conversation I would expect to walk into with Seth would not be pleasant. But the purpose of doing the work in 2023 was to open the door for applicants like Seth.
Mhm.
So I understand that you might be frustrated. I can understand why. I chose to kind of let that wound heal a little bit. So I apologize.
Oh, that's fine. I actually ran into him and asked him how things are going. He's great.
Okay.
And I had talked to him and,
I just didn't want to open up another wound of a conversation that, on one hand, you could have got a commitment, could have got an approval or pre-approval. And then on the other hand, we're here a few days later saying, no, it didn't qualify. It'd be a very uncomfortable conversation. But more importantly, I think that's a great example of why we were trying to do the work in 2023, is to figure out what is it that our community needs and where is this gap that we can fill. So I wanted to share that with this body.
thank you.
So do we need to do anything officially with that submission?
Oh,
I'm trying to think, what do we do?
we were, I believe, just looking at information. We hadn't come close to a vote or anything.
Yeah, but it was presented to us. I'm almost thinking as what city council would do is they'd probably have to officially table it.
Officially table it or.
Yeah. It gives closure doing that. On the other hand, I would argue, I don't know that the application went through the actual checklist. So
Yeah.
I don't know that it was ever.
I'm not sure it did either.
So should we make a motion to table?
I think to be safe, it doesn't preclude an applicant from reapplying, but it does close that chapter.
I'll make a motion to table
Okay.
then.
Second.
All right, motion and a second to table the application from
CrossFit. Is that right?
from CrossFit Angola.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion's carried. All right, thank you.
I am hoping of an expeditious process to open up these floodgates of policies and procedures so that we can go back on and hopefully have better conversations.
Mhm.
I'd love one of our meetings, Isaac, for you to kind of tell us when you run into somebody exactly, I don't mean exactly, but kind of what the criteria is you're looking for. And, because we have people come in at the bank all the time and buying a new business, buying existing business, $1.2 million looking for financing.
Mhm.
does that qualify? Can, where are the lines drawn on purchases versus new businesses? And I don't think I understand that as well as I
Two
should.
criteria to start with, and then we can help determine the rest. One, it's an existing business, and two, it's in either the city of Angola or ETJ. So you started, I'm bringing a new business, that technically, under the old policies and procedures, wouldn't qualify. Under its pilot program, that's why it was created.
See, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so, but an existing business, even those that are being purchased and it's running during the purchase, that, in theory, qualifies.
Those would qualify.
The actual acquisition itself would not qualify, but the fact that it was still running
A
and.
lot of times, and this happens in economic development, happens in Mark's world, on commercial properties, I would imagine often, or commercial projects often. A lot of times when a business is being bought, they're typically being bought with the intent to also capitalize on equipment. So there's a transition of equipment. All that new equipment under this current Indiana code statute would be new taxable income to the state and would be qualified for AIF.
I'm just throwing this out, we have a business right now looking to buy, move an existing business, like $1.8 million. Most of it is real estate, but I'm gonna guess $100,000 of it is equipment. If we did the real estate and did 75% loan to value of the real estate, would AIF want to come in and do a second or a first on the equipment? A first on the equipment, a second on the real estate? Because we're not giving them 6.5% interest.
I believe we did that in the past already.
What makes sense for the borrower?
It's public record now, but the transaction of Foods Alive, if you remember, they were in the building right behind Chapman's, or part, I guess, Chapman's building. Right, you're talking about. The building they're in now was Easter Seals Rise. So in their transition, a large part of their capital went towards the real estate acquisition. And one could argue, well, that was a real estate transaction of a company expanding. But they were already located within the city of Angola, which is why they were first eligible. So it's different when you've got an outside company looking to come in, but the equipment piece is generally, if there's new equipment involved, that's where AIF can pick up. Again, as long as it's within the city of Angola territories or ETJs. And we have the ability as a group to modify that, change that. That's a great example. So I would say one vote, yes, that is the type of project that you want.
That would help.
What help the customer? That's the thing. You're helping the customer. And what's our thoughts on why the city of Angola versus the county? I'm just curious as to what the overall philosophy is there. And maybe we don't have enough time for that.
No, this is a good conversation because I've been trying for years to get a countywide revolving loan fund. This is what we have. It's a revolving loan fund at its core, just disguised as a venture capital fund or a Angola investment fund. The terms and everything are set up the same way. The difference is the city of Angola seeded it with Major Moves money. So we didn't go out to EDA, we didn't go out to USDA, and like most revolving loan funds, capitalize it with state or federal dollars. We did it ourselves, which is why we have so much control. I envy that. I applaud and thank City Council and the mayor at the time for doing that. Was Mayor Hickman.
And Kathy.
And Kathy. Kathy was a large part of that. You're absolutely right, Jerry. That was a great idea. $1 million at the time, that was a lot of money, but they thought it was important. That's why it stopped within our territories. And I completely understand why. But I will tell you, if the county had one, town of Fremont, Orland, Hamilton, there would have been AIF notes, RLF notes, same thing. There would have been notes in those communities, no doubt. But the county doesn't have one. And it really doesn't make sense for me to go to the town of Fremont when they're smaller in scale, say, hey, put some money aside and do revolving loan funds, because they'll never capitalize it like the city of Angola did. I'd rather build one across the county that encompasses every other piece. In theory, one could say, well, you could get an AIF note and a county revolving loan fund. Yeah, you could. You might, find an accountant who's bald after that. Because it'd be a mess trying to keep track of, which dollar is whose dollar, reporting back. But in theory, you could have essentially the revolving loan fund for the county be an umbrella over top of the AIF. Not to prohibit, but to stack, capital stack. So
And if we would have something that's tailor-made, fits the protocol we're looking for to a T, and it's in Fremont, for example, there's nothing we can do to override that. That's set in stone.
I think the ordinance is what says that has to be signed here.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to,
So to change that,
sure.
you'd have to.
I'm not asking that. I'm not asking that.
Body to change it, and I don't see that.
We could get our new president to work on that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Very persuasive. Yeah.
I don't think that will work. I'll have better luck trying to find additional cash to do a county road wide.
Yeah.
So stacking would be something that we want to think about with other businesses who could potentially fund things. So getting those partnerships and
There's
stacking.
been creative ways in the past, and I'm not really picking on Mark, but we've seen some community banks take some capital investments and reinvest in communities, creating these notes. Some have become preferred lenders then as a way to do that. We've seen collaboration. I shouldn't say we. You could find examples across the U.S. where you get other communities like on a countywide that where they all chip into a pot to seed it. They take, if there's a spike in what we call seed it from year over year, and there's some surplus and we don't know what to do with it, they put it into the revolving loan fund in a 1-year splash. Could have done that with maybe ARP money.
I'm even thinking of things like within the city limits, like the facade grants. Be having a building and then stacking that on top of, another, loan here. So you'd have,
For,
building.
again, under its old policies, you couldn't because the business wouldn't qualify, but under new ones, if the business was in the specific industry cluster, theoretically, yeah, you could. That's the beauty about the fund being created locally is you minimize all the restrictions. If it comes from USDA or EDA, you limit some of that capital stacking with other state agency funds. This one you don't. So, like I said, I applaud it for being created locally. Very unique.
Any other discussion on that? Any other business? Kyle has made we got reports. Do we have any reports? Did we get any reports tonight?
We have no report.
Okay, we have no reports. Next time we'll have reports. Kyle, you're making a motion to adjourn.
I am.
This is government stuff. Do you have a second? Okay.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same.
Thank you.
Motion's carried. The next meeting is sometime in July.
Yes. July.
Yeah, see you guys.
Felt like we got financials at the end of the month of each quarter.
Yeah,
15th.
July 15th.
If we could have Ryan.
Yep, let's get it.
I feel like it's been every last month. But
Yep, sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
if it came last meeting, we could have got that all hashed out.
No doubt. Would have been all done.
I think marketing was the only thing we were talking about last time, really. I mean, if you've watched it.
Yeah, I did.
And I was thinking, we could, pair that with some of the things that the SCEDC, an enterprise center offers, and I don't know.
Good. I've heard good things about the Spark event.
Good. Good.
I was popping in and out.
It was scary. I found out that streamers, first-time streamers, I found that the average live stream over all streamers is 27.7 people per. Did you stop and stream?
Now I did.
Oh, okay.
Oh, hit end. You gotta hit.
You
one
can
more
hit
time.
end again.
But no, I was bumping in and out, had a couple things going on.